Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Smackdown live review. And I thought tonight's Smackdown, while it was above Raw, really isn't saying much because Raw set the bar so low, SmackDown didn't even have to vault over it, more like just step over it. And I feel like it accomplished that, but really only by a slim margin. While there were redeeming qualities to the SmackDown, there were things that I felt like were just flat out boring or completely unproductive. Partner, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that this was a SmackDown that had very little going for it. There was a lot that happened, but nothing really happened. It was very boring, filler, and I could say the same thing about Raw. And I would agree with you to a degree that SmackDown was a little bit better than Raw, but that's just because SmackDown didn't actively piss me off like Raw did.
Exactly. So with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. And this is just one of the shows, like, I have no heats of the night. I don't even really think I have any nitpicks. It was just a show that had, its high points, but then some really boring points. So I'm good for the night, but that doesn't make this a perfect show. What about you, partner?
Just, I would say I had of a nitpick, and that is just as simple as I'm already, after 2, done with the Scooby-Doo shit.
Yes. Oh, my God. These segments annoy me so much.
Yeah, they're pretty awful, and they're not quite Natalia. They're not quite the worst, but they're still pretty horrible.
Yeah, I agree. They're absolutely horrid. They have no business on my television. But with that said, are there any other grievances you wanted to air out about this show?
No, I don't think so, man. I think this was just a lukewarm, bland, beginning to end. Like, you watch it and you don't really regret it, but you're not really excited about it either kind of show.
All right, man. Well, with that said, let us get right into our SmackDown live review. And we open things up with Randy Orton walking in the hallway. And I think he was confronted by one of the interviewers wanting to question him about Brock Lesnar. And Randy Orton does the same usual shtick of, oh, it only takes one RKO to go to Viperville. Side note, I love Randy Orton. I'm glad that he's back, but Viperville isn't connecting with me at all. And, then Alberto Del Rio interrupts, and it's pretty much made known they're going to have a match tonight. And Alberto Del Rio saying, I'm not afraid of you, Orton, and we're going to see if you could take me to Viperville. It's nothing more than Disneyland. And Orton's like, oh, if you feel that way, I'll give you a VIP tour. And Del Rio's like, I'd like to see you try with a broken arm. So we know those two are going to have a match tonight, and Del Rio playing the more heelish role as we'd expect. What did you think of this exchange, partner?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an opinion on this exchange because admittedly I turned on SmackDown at 8:01, and by the time that happened, all that I saw was that these guys were having a match. I didn't actually see, oh, this is this exchange that's happening right now. It was just, okay, these guys are going to fight, whatever.
Right. So with that said, we move right along, and what do we get after this, partner?
We had this whole Bray Wyatt thing where he makes up a bunch of excuses saying he didn't lose, he was a victim. And first of all, immediately, not a huge fan of Bray Wyatt, of all people, calling himself a victim.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. That made him seem more mortal than anything else. I wasn't a fan of that.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that, like, Bray Wyatt is, and he even called himself, he even said in his promo, I am a god. Well, if you were a god, I don't think gods have victim complexes, brother.
No, they certainly do not. I mean, it's funny because he made a legitimate point about Dolph Ziggler using the exposed turnbuckle last week. But the thing is, that whole kind of line of argumentation is so contrary to the Bray character, it felt a little out of place. And see, this is, I think, a central problem with the Bray character that you and I have been hammering out, if not for months, maybe even years. It's that you build him in such a way that he constantly has to justify himself after a loss. And I think after a while, you kind of put yourself in a position like this. So start booking him more strongly, start getting him some wins, and we can avoid awkward promos like this in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that this was an awkward promo. Just, it just seems odd that this monster character now all of a sudden fancies himself a victim. You know, that's the only thing that kind of struck me wrong about this. I thought the rest of the promo was good. The delivery was great as always with Bray, but calling himself a victim is a no-go for me. But then we get Dean Ambrose coming out and basically tells Bray to stop whining, which if I heard someone that size, that intimidating, call himself a victim, I'd probably say the same thing.
Right. Again, it's just not a good look for the character. Ambrose, meanwhile, I continue to love his confidence and his swagger as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I think he's a man of conviction, like everything he says he believes. But then, Bray kind of laughs at Ambrose, just kind of saying, quit your whining and saying, oh, Ambrose, if you really want to do something about it, why don't you come in here? Ambrose is, smarter than that. He's like, oh, I know. It's just going to be you and your family getting the jump on me. So Ambrose is trying to exercise some wisdom in this situation. But then Dolph Ziggler's music hits, and this kind of made me kind of arch an eyebrow a little bit because Ziggler just kind of tosses his clothing and just comes into the ring without a game plan, tries to do like a full frontal attack, fails miserably. Then Dean has to come in to clean up the mess. Everything becomes chaotic. And then at one point, when Ambrose is in a compromising position for the Sister Abigail, Dolph tries to save him with a super kick, but Bray averts it, and Dolph ends up hitting Dean. Dolph's just like, oh, what did you do? What did you do? Then he super kicks Eric Rowan. And then I think Bray did get the Sister Abigail on Dolph, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did.
So, yeah, the Wyatt family kind of emerged victorious from this scuffle. And what did you think about this whole skirmish to start?
It's as far as the I don't even know how to describe it. What would you describe this as? A scuffle?
Yeah, scuffle, a skirmish, something of that nature.
I think that Bray Wyatt using Dean Ambrose to make it seem like Dolph kicked him on purpose and like positioning him in Dolph's way, because he saw it was great because of the way they built it up, because of the way Bray specifically built it up, because he saw Dolph winding up for the super kick and he waited for him to start swinging his foot, and then he pulled Dean into the way. It was awesome.
Right. Yeah, I really like the way that was done as well. I agree. And this would create tension later in the night, but we'll get to that. Do you have anything else you want to say about this particular segment, though?
Well, it's funny you say later on in the night, because it actually created tension instantly, because once we got back from commercial, that was actually the first thing we saw was Dean getting up in Dolph's face and be like, look, man, I didn't need your help, and I don't think that kick was accidental.
Exactly. And then Dolph's just saying, why wait till SummerSlam? We could settle things right now. No time like the present. And then this tension is cut in by Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan, who, they're like, oh, we're going to put this all to the test. It's going to be a tag team main event tonight. Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan versus Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose. And if you don't like it, what was that thing you said to us last week, Dolph? Oh, yeah, screw you. And then they walk out. So we know now, yeah, it's going to be a tag team main event like I think you and I predicted last week. I think I even said something about a tag team main event last week on SmackDown Live TWitWoW. And here we are.
Real classy.
Yep, I'd say. So, I liked it. I will say this about the first few segments. It seemed like it was moving with a sense of purpose. Like, okay, let's get all the pieces together so we have our show, like, all ready. Because I know some complaints about Raw last night was a lot of people were kind of clueless, not clued in about what the card was. And already you kind of get a structure for the SmackDown. You're getting Del Rio versus Orton, and you're getting your tag team match. So if I have to give SmackDown credit for anything, it's that it was very upfront about its product tonight. And I think Raw could actually learn from that. So.
And another thing that I'll give SmackDown credit for that we haven't gotten to talk about yet, but that we will, is that SmackDown actually had night. And they did that with 2 hours. Raw can't manage it with 3.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. With that said, is there anything else you want to say about this segment?
No, sir. I'm perfectly content. Moving on, and up next was our first match of the night, American Alpha versus Mikey O'Shea and Mike Vega. But before the match starts, we get a few maybe jealous teams coming out that are angry that American Alpha called themselves the best tag team in the world on Talking Smack last week.
Yeah, at first I was excited by this because the Ascension was the first team to come out. And if you remember in our draft discussions on TWitWoW. I said, you know, one good thing to come out of this, they could really rebuild the Ascension, and they could be that monster heel tag team. You know, this draft could be a breath of fresh air. And I'm like, oh my God, they're gunning for Alpha immediately. This could be really cool. But then it was preceded by, you know, the Vaudevillains and all these other teams. And I'm like, okay, so this is just kind of like a tag team division kind of conference. Let's take a look at the new team. And, you know, that's not bad. It just, I got really excited when the Ascension came out first, and I thought it was going to be a team-to-team kind of program and not this whole division coming out to scout American Alpha.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's Ascension would have been a great option to be like the first real feud with Alpha, just because, and actually maybe even not, because maybe you need more time. You can't just shove them right in there and be like, hey, these guys are awesome heels now. You have to kind of build them up too. So maybe this does make sense, because them with local talent gives you a little more time to build up a legitimate heel team to eventually face them in what would eventually be for the SmackDown tag titles.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And I'm hoping both the SmackDown tag titles and the SmackDown Women's Championship are all established before their first big event, Backlash, which I think it will be, hopefully. And yeah, they just scout out American Alpha. Not much to say here, guys. If you've seen American Alpha and NXT, you know what they do. It was, you know, takedowns and suplexes, and they just wrestled all around these local competitors, and they ended the match with grand amplitude as the whole tag team division looked on. So American Alpha, you know, currently undefeated. First victory was over the Vaudevillains, and then this week they face local competitors, which is an interesting choice, because you think they would almost have inverted that. They would have started with the local competitors, and then maybe this week they would have beaten the Vaudevillains, but that wasn't the case. So American Alpha rolls on, though, and I'll be curious to see what they do next.
Yeah. American Alpha is definitely a treat, but what I don't want to see happen is for SmackDown to feature them so much that they get overexposed, because that's one problem they really didn't have on NXT, because they were only ever on, 2 or 3 episodes a month, and obviously takeovers.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Overexposure is always a problem. I don't know if we're going to be able to avoid that, though, given the depth of the SmackDown roster. And I say this as a compliment to Alpha, but you know that they're going to become, if they're not already, one of SmackDown's main attractions. So, you know, we may be seeing them very prominently, which I think is very cool for them, but it does have those drawbacks they have to be very wary of. So we'll see how they're handled, and I guess we'll just take it from there.
All right, up next, we get Renee Young attempting to interview The Miz, who has Maurice with him. And she's trying to talk about what he thinks about Apollo Crews, but he's just like, no, how about we talk about me? And then he and Maurice start talking about each other and, you know, making googly eyes from across the table. And Renee's just like, you know what? Let's kick over to this Apollo Crews video package. So we get that while Miz and Maurice are eyeing each other up.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, while I was live tweeting about SmackDown tonight, again, shout out to my Scum Squad, you know, another great show with them. I even said I love Miz's heel work so much that if hypothetically, if he were to drop the IC title to Apollo Crews at SummerSlam, given that there are going to be SmackDown exclusive events and just everything going on, I think it's time, not necessarily to give Miz another world title run, but to get him back in the world title picture. I would not mind a program with him versus Ambrose, honestly. I'd kind of welcome it at this point. So, yeah. I mean, I've been hearing rumors that AJ is going to be obviously the next go-to feud for Ambrose, which makes all the sense in the world. But if we could fit Miz in there and maybe like a lower kind of SmackDown event, I'd be totally cool with that. I think he's doing top-notch work, and I think that should be commended and recognized. So,
well, dude, and that's the thing, too, is I keep on talking about with Roman, you have these golden tickets to create a babyface that's, you know, beloved, because you have these sort of opportunities. The first one was Stephanie getting physically, you know, attacked by a superstar. They used that on Roman. Second one's Rusev. They're using that on Roman. Third one's The Miz. And we were even talking about The Miz getting traded to Raw in the summer or in the fall for Cesaro. So maybe they'll use that on Roman too.
Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Or maybe come SummerSlam, they will use it on Apollo Crews, him putting a stop to The Miz's Intercontinental Championship World Tour, which would be cool, but that remains to be seen. I just think that Apollo Crews is very lucky right now because he really doesn't have a definable character as a babyface, but he's working with such a great heel foil in The Miz. And that's what I think is really going to make this feud successful. So I enjoyed what Miz did here. It was a decent video package for Cruz, but not really much else to say than that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about this next segment. Becky Lynch comes out, about to have a match with Eva Marie. She tried last week, got her leg hurt, she had to leave, and everything went poorly. But now Becky Lynch is all excited. She's gonna finally get to fight Miss Allred Everything. And Eva comes out with this glorious theme song with this voiceover, and it's great. And then we get, of all things, a wardrobe malfunction.
What did you think about this, man?
Well, okay, so first of all, it was a wardrobe malfunction in the technical sense because her wardrobe literally malfunctioned, but it wasn't a wardrobe malfunction in the Janet Jackson sense in that we got to see anything interesting on Eva Marie.
Right, of course.
So that, I thought they did that relatively tastefully, which surprised me because it's WWE and you never know where they're going to go. I guess just trying to, appease the PG sponsors and stuff. So Eva Marie is probably, I don't want to say the best thing going right now because I do want to give credit to a lot of other things. The Miz being one, Rusev obviously. There's a lot of good stuff going on. Eva Marie is the most intriguing thing in the WWE right now, I think, because she can't wrestle worth a lick, she can't talk worth a lick, but they're not making her do either one of those things. So how can I complain?
Right. I'd say it again. I said it on Twitter tonight. I said it, I think, on SmackDown Live TWitWoW last week. I love how they're building her. I think it's perfect. For the type of person that she is and for all the hate that she gets, this is the perfect way to utilize it. And I'm still sticking to my guns. I want her to be the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion, and I want her to go on a ridiculous run that's fluky pretty much the whole way there. And then when a baby... Yeah.
Becky Lynch, and then Becky Lynch dethrones her at WrestleMania 33.
Yeah, perfect. And that's what should be done, because I'm telling you, and it's not even just me going back to my whole, every inaugural champion has to be a heel, even though I still am sticking to that belief. It's just the idea. I just think it's the most logical choice, because I feel like if you start her off as inaugural champion, that's going to make everybody be like, what? What about our women's revolution and their wrestlers and this doesn't change anything at all. And then we're just keeping Becky so sympathetic, which that's the one thing I will say that's done right in terms of booking and characters. Man, are they keeping Becky sympathetic, because I'm really starting to feel for her after tonight. And we'll get to how her night went from bad to worse in a second. But yeah, you keep her sympathetic, and yet she keeps the fire and she keeps climbing, and then you have this match. And honestly, because it's Eva Marie and it's WrestleMania, me personally, I would have it be like a 30-second match. Like maybe Eva tries something, maybe even she tries.
God,
yeah.
Yes, literally, she steps in the ring. Maybe Eva Marie uses some kind of tactic to cheat to win all of her matches. Like, I don't know, she undoes the turnbuckle pad like Toru Yano when the match starts, and she does a drop toe hold with someone onto it, and that's how she wins the title, and that's how she wins. Because that's the thing with a heel like Eva, she's not going to win her matches by out wrestling anyone. She has to win by some kind of gimmick, some kind of fluke. Honky Tonk Man had his guitar. We need some kind of gimmick on her. So you give her the gimmick. She tries to use it right out the gate against Becky. Becky avoids it and then uses her technical wrestling ability to lock Eva into the disarmor. Eva has no toughness because she's already been built up as a coward. She taps out right away, and the crowd pops huge.
Exactly. And I know we're already kind of seeing this feud, this whole Eva Marie Becky feud, but it is a feud, honestly, I hope they'd return to, only this time for a championship, because first of all, it's time to get some hardware on Becky Lynch. And two,
Yes.
you could start the SmackDown Women's Championship off right with this amazing, obnoxious.
SmackDown, I will say SmackDown is already doing a better job with really highlighting their women than Raw, because Raw, if you watch Raw on a regular basis, you are basically under the impression there are only 3 women on the entire roster: Sasha, Charlotte, and Dana, and that's it.
Right.
On SmackDown, though, they have 6 women, and you see all 6 of them, or at least 5 of them, because Naomi doesn't really show up often, but you see 5 of them, and it's on a 2-hour show, whereas Raw, you've got 3 hours, you've got 7 women, and you only ever show 3 of them.
Right.
So and SmackDown is already showing a little bit more progressiveness as far as women go than Raw, even though it's funny because Raw drafted women faster and more frequently. And Mick Foley kept on saying, oh, we think that SmackDown might have forgotten that there are also women on this roster. And yet SmackDown is doing a better job of portraying their women than Raw.
I completely agree. Eva goes to the back at this point. Becky is just fed up. She's like, I'm a competitor. I came here to fight. Anybody in the back, like, I want a match tonight. I'm not going to go 2 weeks in a row without competing. Come at me, bro, she says to end her promo. And who answers the call but Alexa Bliss, who, oddly enough, it was her birthday tonight. So happy birthday to Alexa Bliss. And
that's not even a coincidence. They totally did that on purpose.
I believe it. Because apparently when Finn won the Fatal 4-Way and then he beat Roman Reigns, that was on his birthday. So birthdays are a good time, apparently. And Alexa Bliss says, I'm more than just a pretty face. I am, the top female on SmackDown. I'm going to prove it by beating the #1 women's draft pick for SmackDown. So Alexa Bliss answers the call, and we get Alexa Bliss versus Becky. And what did you think about how all this went down, partner?
Well, I thought that it was really nice to see Alexa asserting herself, and that's kind of the character that she played in NXT. She was assertive, and even that might be understating it. She was aggressive in NXT, but at the very least, we could say she was assertive. She went after what she wanted. She had a high opinion of herself, and she thought that she deserved a lot, and she tried to make the things that she deserved happen. So she thinks she's better than Becky Lynch. She comes out and she's just like, hey, I'm better than you, and now I'm going to prove it. And because of Eva Marie coming back out of the curtain, it happened. But the one thing I will say that I wasn't a big fan of during the commercial, I can't get behind that.
Right. I can't get behind it either. I mean, how many times have you and I said one of the best things about the Lucha Underground model is you see matches from beginning to end. And if there is a cut to commercial, like say if you're doing like an Aztec Warfare or a big match like that, it's always during a low point or after something significant has happened, like an elimination or something else. And yeah, with SmackDown or Raw, sometimes you get it when somebody just got tossed out of a ring or a dive occurred or something, when the momentum's kind of at a high point. And I just never really understood that. So
yeah. So Becky gets distracted and Alexa Bliss, she clobbers her in the back. She does that choked style Uranagi thing that she does. The Twisted Bliss off the top rope, formerly the Sparkle Splash, and that's the 3 count. Becky loses again, and she is the true underdog, John, and Eva Marie is going to win the title, and Becky beating her is going to be one of the greatest moments since Daniel Bryan won the world title at WrestleMania 30.
I hope so, brother, because they have a fine story on their hands. They really do. They just got to play their cards right. Because I even loved Eva's promo. Like, oh, I feel really bad, and I wanted to compete, and my gear got fixed, but, Alexa beat me to it. But don't worry, I'll be ready for my debut next week. I think it's freaking gold. I think it's awesome. I love it, and I just hope they keep going in the right direction with this. Eva Marie for inaugural SmackDown Women's Champion, and Becky being the champion immediately after. That's exactly how they should book it to me.
Yeah, so that's exactly, and I don't disagree with you. So let's and by the way, the post-Frats promo was hilarious. I know you already talked about it, but I just want to say Eva Marie, maybe her delivery's gotten a little bit better, but maybe it was just because she was as highly controlled as possible. She spoke like 3 sentences and then left. But I thought that her promo here wasn't bad.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good stuff, and it stays true to the heel character. Like, I
did a really good job of acting genuine. Like, oh, I really wanted to have this match, but it looks like Alexa beat me to it. It's just so genuinely like distraught when everyone knows that she did this on purpose. It was awesome.
Exactly. I completely agree.
All right, so let's talk about what happened next here. The third match of the night, Randy Orton versus Alberto Del Rio. And if I was tired enough tonight, this would have been the SmackDown equivalent to Sheamus Cesaro because it almost put me to sleep. But I will say this was better, in my opinion, than Sheamus Cesaro because it was more physical. And I personally just think that if you would put Sheamus, Cesaro, Orton, and Del Rio up in a line, I would line them as far as who the best to worst workers are. I would say Cesaro, then Orton, then Del Rio, then Sheamus.
I would agree with that order. I think exactly. Yeah, this match.
But we had, and the thing too is, I would say Cesaro, and then a small gap, and then Orton, and then a massive gap, and then Del Rio, and then another big gap.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Because I've Sheamus. We always say Sheamus is capable of putting on great matches, and he is, but he has to actually try first, and he just doesn't seem to care lately. And on top of that, it also kind of has this feeling of with Cesaro and him. But in this, they did a really good job, and I think it also has to do with Morrow, because they also did a really good job on commentary of saying Alberto Del Rio has an MMA background, so this could be a test for Orton to see how he fares against a legit tough guy.
Yeah, that was great. I love that. I will say, too, to the Sheamus remark, I don't know if you saw an interview he did recently, but he even kind of pointed out, I think, how far his stock has fallen in the company from being WWE champion to just, kind of working matches like this. And he made a whole thumbs down kind of motion. So maybe he's just phoning it in because he feels like no upward mobility is possible. And he feels like, well, maybe they just feel like I've peaked, so why even give a shit? I don't know. But, match wasn't bad between Orton and Del Rio. It was what it was. We didn't get a definitive conclusion because Del Rio felt the need to get a chair and start hammering Orton with it, but he wasn't able to do all the offensive damage he wanted to because Orton would hit an RKO, and so he laid Del Rio out to end it. So yeah. Orton wins by DQ, and he stands tall thanks to the RKO after a pretty okay match.
Which makes all the sense in the world because you can't have him looking anything but really strong given who he's facing at SummerSlam.
Exactly. So in a way, as much as like I usually hate DQ finishes unless it, kind of fits the story or the character or what have you, having Orton being like, tried to be taken out by this chair by Del Rio shows his toughness and his resilience. Like, oh, he's not going to be put away by that. So what's Brock Lesnar going to have to do to put him away at SummerSlam? So good stuff.
Exactly. Yes.
Anything you want to say about this match?
So I think we can move on, and up next was the Miz Scooby-Doo shit. So if you want to, we can move on from that.
We can move on.
Okay, so this was another really funny segment. Backstage, Rhino and Heath Slater are talking, and it's odd to hear Rhino talk at all because I know he can talk, but for him to be doing anything but screaming bloody murder is just foreign to me because this is Rhino, this is the man beast. I don't feel like he should be able to speak coherently, but here we are. And Heath is asking Rhino, come on, man, you don't got anything to lose. I need this contract for my 2 kids. Rhino's just like, oh, sorry, man, but I've got constituents that I need to impress. I just won whatever the election is that Rhino won. He's a Republican, so it makes sense that he'd be trying to take jobs away. And Heath Slater is talking about how I bought a pool, man, and how you help me out, man. I've got 4 kids that need me to bring money home. And Rhino's just like, wait, I thought you said 2 kids. And he's like, yeah, no, it is. It's 4. I got 4. It's 4 now. And Rhino goes, so is the pool in ground or above ground? And he's like, I bought a really nice above ground pool. And we talked about this on TWitWoW, and I'm just going to bring it up again. Heath Slater in this segment reminded me of Danny McBride's character on Eastbound and Down.
Yeah. It's funny because I even said on Twitter, I think Heath Slater's got the best storyline going right now, at least on SmackDown, because
I'm trying so hard to remember the guy's name. I keep on trying to remember the guy's name. Kenny Powers! Kenny Powers! Heath Slater's character right now is Kenny Powers.
Yeah. It's really, I don't know what it says about the era we're in, at least again as it relates to SmackDown, when I say that Heath Slater's one of the best things going on it, because it is a very intriguing prospect that he's like a man without a country, so to speak. He is this free agent.
And he even has a shirt now that says free agent on it. That's pretty cool.
And you watch, if they're patient with it, I think that could really grow into something, like with people hashtagging free agent, or maybe even like kind of a unique Slater chant. I could really see this kind of being a grassroots thing akin to Zack Ryder's whole YouTube channel and what spawned from that. You just got to give it time, and I know that that's not necessarily a virtue in this kind of culture of immediacy of ours where everybody wants things like right away. But I think if they're patient with it, they'd see payoffs. Because I think Slater's doing some quality work here. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Slater is really stepping it up, doing good character work too. Either that or he's just playing himself, which wouldn't surprise me because every account we've ever heard of Heath Slater is that he's dumb as hell.
And you know what's like funny, man? I'm just going to be real with everybody. Depending on how they play this, and it certainly seems like they're planning on keeping, at least for the moment, Heath Slater heel. But if he would get that groundswell of support and people would really start supporting him, I think a great culmination of this storyline could even be him winning the IC championships. And not only do you get like a contract with someplace, but you're a champion representing that brand. I think it would be cool if, like, you know, maybe Miz bumped shoulders with him, kind of made fun of him for not being hired anywhere, and just shows how worthless and, you know, ill-talented he is. And then Heath Slater stands up for himself. I think that could be a cool story to tell. I just think they could go so many routes with Heath Slater being a free agent. And my mind's kind of telling me he's going to end up as like a pretty nice baby face at the end of this. But for right now,
yeah, dude, I was even going to say, like, if we weren't wasting Roman on it, I would totally have Heath Slater pull what Santino did when he first debuted and shock the world and beat Rusev for the U.S. title.
See, that would be amazing. And you know what? That's still, I mean, no guarantees. But given what happened tonight, Heath Slater may try and concentrate more on Raw. I don't know. And that's another thing, too. Like, where is he going to even end up at the end of it? I don't know either. Maybe. But I'm really hoping that this ends up with him being, you know, a pretty decent babyface with a nice crowd following. I mean, one can only hope. But we'll see where it goes. At the end of the day, like you said, Rhino said, sorry, Heath, you know, I can't help you. So we're still going to have this match. And was the match next, or was that later?
No, it was not quite next. That was a little, or wait. Yeah, actually it was next. Now that it's weird. I have it. My notes are spaced out weird, but yes, it is next. Heath Slater versus Rhino. And Heath, man, I got to give you credit, brother. You almost had him. You almost had him with your feet on the rope, but the one time ever the ref actually catches it, and it's this time.
Exactly. My heart even kind of sunk a little bit because I know he had his feet on the ropes, so I'm like, oh my God, they're actually going to give Slater this win. No way. But the ref caught it. Slater is like, just like, oh, come on, man. You know, can I catch a break? Turns around into a gore. Rhino wins. So Slater still doesn't have a contract. So the story continues. I mean, I'll say this. In-ring wise, I mean, yeah, the match is pretty average. I don't really care much for Rhino, and I actually think Heath could put on great matches. I think he's got a Christian-esque quality about him, but you've just got to take him seriously and give him the time, which I don't think they ever will because he is more of a comedic wrestler. So the match, like, in-ring wise, was decent, but I think what really made it was the story because I'm genuinely invested in the story. So I have to give kudos to Heath Slater for that.
Man, I mean, thing, brother. He's entertaining, and he's actually one of the only things on SmackDown tonight that made me actually want to watch next week and see what happens with.
I agree with you, man. I couldn't have said it better. He is somebody that's keeping my viewership for sure. I think like him, American Alpha, and maybe a few other elements, but yeah, to even include Heath Slater in that conversation just shows the quality of work that he's doing.
Yeah, brother. And so after the match, obviously Rhino wins with a gore, but after the match, Heath Slater is, you know, he goes backstage, and before he even shows up, we see Shane and Daniel Bryan talking about, man, you know, Heath Slater actually really does embody the fighting spirit that we want here on SmackDown. Maybe we should sign him. And Shane has the contract ready, and next thing you know, Heath Slater walks in, and man, I'm better than this. You guys are a couple of losers. I am done on SmackDown. And he leaves, and then Shane's just like, well, I guess he's not getting this contract, and that's just Heath Slater's luck, you know?
I know, like, even when he loses, he could have won, but he lost it for himself again. And see, the funny thing is, I could see him back on SmackDown next Tuesday because maybe he tries something on Raw. I mean, it can't get any worse than your former best friend betraying you and just, you know, kicking you in the face. But he could come back and be like, oh, come on. I didn't mean what I said. Come on, you got to have a match for the one-man bam, baby. And, you know, they put him in some kind of ridiculous squash or something, but he's good.
Put him in a match with Sami Zayn and have it be who is better at coping with being turned on by their best friend.
I know, right? That'd be crazy. But I mean, we'll see where the story goes, but I'm definitely intrigued, and I hope for his sake because I know he's been in the company for many years. I think he's wanted to really succeed as a single star, and why I keep bringing up the IC title, he said in interviews that's one of his main career goals is to be an Intercontinental Champion. So I think it'd be cool if him and Miz ever bump shoulders and they do a little program over this. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw that they were willing to sign him to a contract tonight, so maybe that means that we're finally going to see Kurt Hawkins on SmackDown next week.
That could be. That's an excellent point. I mean, we know Shelton got delayed, unfortunately, because of his shoulder injury and the surgery he had.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's going to be in WWE now. They might not just because I know MVP failed his physical. Well, maybe they won't sign Shelton at all anymore now that he failed his as well.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing for him. I definitely feel bad for Shelton, but maybe now Kurt Hawkins could step in and he could do
Well, the
some
only reason I
stuff.
say that is because they could be like, well, we were going to sign Heath Slater last week, but he called us losers and he said that he wasn't interested, so we signed this guy instead, and then they bring in Hawkins.
Right.
That could be interesting. I mean, he's not going to be a star. He's not going to be a main eventer or even like an upper mid carder, but he's a really good workhorse kind of guy. He's a good hand. He's a mechanic kind of guy, and we've seen him at PWG before, and he's good. He's not bad. He's a solid in-ring worker.
Certainly. And look, and I don't try and be, blasé about it or just kind of brushing him off, but Kurt Hawkins, if nothing else, and I agree with everything you said, but if nothing else, he does fill roster space. And I do think SmackDown needs a meatier roster, so these signings are definitely a good thing. So we'll see what happens with Heath. We'll see what happens with Kurt Hawkins. I'm still intrigued. They still got the hook in my mouth pulling me back for next week. So we'll see what happens then.
Absolutely. Let's move on. Up next, we had Carmella, and I really like Carmella. She's really, really cool, and she has a great attitude, and she's clearly willing to learn and adapt, and she's gotten so much better over the course of the last year or so. But man, she was so far from ready for being called up. She got no reaction tonight whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know if that was just being a pretty lukewarm crowd, because I know people were complaining about the crowd again tonight, but that notwithstanding, I do still agree with your criticism. I like Carmella a lot. In fact, so much so that I think she could really be something in WWE's just women's wrestling division in general, Raw or SmackDown. I'm just saying more generally, being a competent and successful women's wrestler in the company. And clearly Triple H sees the same thing, and I'm sure some other higher ups see the same thing, but she could have used a little bit more polish down there, I think. I think she was doing really good stuff in NXT. Things were starting to click. And then I
think the biggest thing with her in NXT was they didn't bother to try and see if she could get over on her own. And now she's on her own, and she's proving that she might not actually know how to get over without Enzo and Cass.
Right. And that's a problem. And again, I feel bad for her because everything you said, like her ability to learn, her being, likable, all that stuff.
I really like Carmella as a performer. I really like the person behind the performer, Leah Van Dale. I like her. I want her to succeed, but these crowds could not give a single shit about her. And the whole thing is too, she comes off as heelish because she does all these rhymes and she calls herself fabulous and all this stuff. And then you've got Natalya in the ring doing a freaking kip up and the crowd cheers for her. Like, you're doing this all wrong. And I'm not even talking about her. I'm talking about the writers. They're doing this all wrong. They're putting her immediately in the ring with a veteran in the ring, which you'd think makes sense. But the problem is the first thing that you need to do with any new talent is get them over in the way that you want them to be over. And her wrestling a match is not going to be the way that gets her over the way that you want her to be. That's going to be the way that you get her over down the line after she's already been established as, oh, wow, she's not just cool, she's good too. But you need to establish her as cool first.
Yeah, and that is something, like, we gave credit to SmackDown earlier, and now it kind of volleys, and this is something I have to give Raw credit for, because they have not shifted gears from giving Braun Strowman and Nia Jax, respectively, squash matches. I don't think they are going to shift gears until both Braun Strowman and Nia Jax are getting the reactions and have the kind of aura that Raw wants them to have. And then
and another thing I want to add is Carmella spending a 5-minute match doing nothing but selling isn't going to do anything for her. Her thing that gets her over is her offense. She does, the top rope Hurricane Rana. She does the moonwalk with the thing into the corner. She has different things that people will get into, but this entire match was just her selling Natalya's offense and Natalya basically showing off.
That's an excellent point, dude. Because yeah, Carmella never even got to have her traditional comeback, which I think has some really fun spots to your point that the crowd could connect with. But it was more just telling the story. Oh, Carmella got beat down last week by this bully veteran in Natalia. And by the way, I'm going to get to Natalia in a second because I have a few comments about that character as
Oh
well.
God, she's so
And
bad.
and, then she just had to fight from the ground up again, but in a more formal setting, that being an actual match. So it wasn't even Carmella being able to dazzle and do all the fun stuff that she does. It was just her trying to, just stay in the fight. Natalia, and no, it's not just going to be me saying that she's the worst, although I think that would be sufficient commentary on the subject. I don't like what an idiot this heel character is, at least for this particular episode, because you did the run down the ramp beat down last week. Did you really think it was going to work 2 weeks in a row? Because, that was the first thing that went off in my mind. Natalia tried it again. Carmella was ready for it this week. And then the other thing was, and I get that heels do this, so maybe I'm coming down unnecessarily hard on her. I didn't like all the posturing she was doing. Like, if you're a Hart and you're a really exceptional wrestler and that's your bragging rights, then wouldn't you just want to be dominant and get wins with that wrestling, not posture and sit on people and mock chants and an abdominal stretch? I don't know. I felt a disconnect with it personally. So
Yeah, I definitely feel you, man. I definitely felt a disconnect, and the thing is, she's a heel, and I think they see that as, oh, well, she's the heel, so she can be dumb, because if she's dumb, that'll make people want to, boo her even more, because, oh, boo, you're stupid, kind of thing. But heels and really just every character in general, there shouldn't be any characters that are that stupid.
no, there shouldn't be. Yeah, and I even remarked on Twitter how idiotic I thought it was. I mean, again, you do the exact same thing you did last week and you expected the same result. You're not a heel, you're insane. Change it up a little bit. But yeah, Carmella does get the win by submission. She does her leg submission, which I think they gave a name for, but I honestly can't remember it.
I just call it a figure 4 headlock.
Yeah, figure 4 headlock would be the more technical term. And Carmella does get the win off of that. But again, it's nice that she won. In fact, that is one thing. I could tell SmackDown's trying because Alexa won, which keeps Becky Lynch sympathetic, which is kind of a victory in itself, for when Becky gets her big victory in the end. And Carmella won, which, I don't really know. Maybe I would have actually preferred Natalia to win only because when Carmella would finally win, maybe she would get her fun stuff in and she'd win the match that way. I don't know. But, I could tell that they're trying. They want to put these new faces forward, and I respect that. But it's all in the approach. And I think, they got Alexa's approach right, and I don't really have any qualms with that. Carmella's approach left a little bit to be desired. So
I definitely did, and is a really good performer who has a long way to go, that got called up way too early, that I don't know if it's going to work out now because of how early she got called up. She could use a demotion back down to NXT, but they just called her up, and I don't think Vince is going to be willing to admit that he was wrong this quickly.
Right. I mean, I agree with everything you said. There's nothing more I can really add to the subject, so unless you have anything else you want to say, we can move on.
And let's move on. Up next, we had another one of these sort of weird Renee Young Sports Center vibe kind of things, and all she really does is go over the SummerSlam card and then sends us to a John Cena AJ Styles video package to hype them up.
I mean, really well done video package, but not much to say about it. I mean, it's all promoting their SummerSlam match, and we'll have plenty to say about that when we get to SummerSlam preview and predictions.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that match, but SummerSlam preview predictions is going to be really fun when we get to talking about that. So then we get the most random, amazing, ridiculous, great segment probably of the entire night. Baron Corbin just in the back randomly beating the ever-loving shit out of Kalisto.
Oh, yeah, my inner scumbag reveled in this segment. So great stuff.
That's all you have to say?
I mean, I was going to hand it back to you to kind of finish it out because he pretty much tells Kalisto that's for costing me the Intercontinental Championship. So we know these two are going to continue to feud, and I want to know what you thought about that.
Do you think that they're going to end up in the Intercontinental title match and end up being a 4-way?
Oh, no. And personally, I think that would be stupid. I would be against that anyway, but I don't even think that's going to happen. I think they really do want to highlight Apollo Crews, and I think Baron Corbin and Kalisto.
I wish they would put Corbin in that match, though. I really do wish that they would put Corbin in the Intercontinental title match just because he didn't get pinned in that 3-way.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think, I mean, hell, I'm kind of hoping Apollo Crews wins at SummerSlam. I mean, that's a result I could really go either way. But if Apollo Crews wins and we get Miz's obligatory rematch out of the way, I would make Corbin the first contender. And maybe that would come after he demolished Kalisto and got him out of the way. So maybe those two could meet in the middle.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you know, I know you and I are very high on Corbin. I would hope that WWE is as well. I mean, if I had it my way, he may even be competing for the WWE Heavyweight Championship right now because I just think he's so freaking good. But I'm just hoping he demolishes Kalisto, you know, puts him down, and then he goes after, you know, presumably Apollo Crews after he beats Miz at SummerSlam, and that's our IC Championship program.
I just really, I don't think, and I know you've got this whole thing where you've been predicting that Crews would be the one to beat Miz for the IC title for the longest time, and I can understand that the reason you're pulling for it to happen is because then it would make you right. I get that. Makes sense though. Personally, I don't think that Corbin or Crews rather is ready for that kind of run, and I think that the Miz is doing too good of work to kind of waste his heat on someone as green at this point as Crews.
Well, I mean, I can agree with you to a point, but I think the greater issue here is more like, who do we do instead? Because I don't think Kalisto, I think they really, I don't want to say they ruined Kalisto.
No, but what I was actually suggesting was if you put Corbin and Kalisto in the IC title match, then Corbin can pin Kalisto and win the Intercontinental title, and you never have to have a heel versus heel feud.
That is true. That is true. I guess we could do that to avoid that kind of crisis.
And
yeah,
I want Baron Corbin to get something. Like, he should have been the NXT champion before he got called up. They called him up. Like, I feel like all these problems could be solved if the WWE didn't just call the wrong people up so freaking often. Like, Corbin, Crews, and Carmella, and of course they all start with a C too. Corbin, Crews, and Carmella all got called up way too freaking early.
Yeah. I mean, at least with Corbin, I could give WWE the credit. I think they wanted to make him a big deal by having him win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but then you have him go on this feud with Ziggler that lasted way too long.
Yeah.
And then on SmackDown, like, his first legitimate program on there is going to be with Kalisto, which, I mean...
Well, we did think originally that he was going to feud with Kalisto over the U.S. title when Kalisto still had that, but now that he doesn't, it's like, what's the point?
Exactly. And what I was getting ready to say was it all kind of presents itself as red flags to me, because you go from this drawn-out feud with Ziggler, who oddly enough, even after coming out on the losing end of this feud, is in a WWE World Heavyweight Championship match at SummerSlam because logic, and then you have him feud with Kalisto. It really makes me have to ask, well, what does WWE see in Baron Corbin? Because I'm thinking that we're operating on two different planes of vision here, and that's really concerning.
Yeah, I feel like they see him as sort of like a mid-card, good hand kind of guy, whereas I see him as potential future WrestleMania main event.
And I see him, I mean, in the same way, because he did main event a WrestleMania. I see Baron Corbin as the next Kevin Nash. I really do, as this big guy.
Yeah. That's the perfect parallel to make. Yeah, nailed it. Good job, John.
And I've been saying that, I think, for like the last, I mean, it's been fairly recent, but the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've really been saying, the guy, he's even said in promos, I go where the money is. Gee, where does that sound familiar? He's big. He's got a great look. He puts people away with ease. I mean, Kevin Nash at his WrestleMania, didn't he beat Bob Backlund in 8 seconds? It was like Jackknife Powerbomb.
That was not at WrestleMania. That was a random Madison Square Garden show. And
that was a random Madison Square Garden. Yeah. But
he just did that to get the title off Backlund.
But didn't he main event the WrestleMania that year and wasn't against Shawn Michaels, I thought? Or was that
I want to say it was against Brett, but I'm not sure. Let me look up Mania 11? 12 maybe?
But regardless, while you're doing that, my point is, like, Baron Corbin has the look. He has the kind of offense where it's not overly flashy, but I mean, especially the finisher end of days will get you to pop. I think all the tools are there for him to be that main event guy. And we really didn't get to see him have an NXT championship run, which I wish we would have, because that would have been very telling of how Baron Corbin handles being a champion, handles being in that kind of spotlight, and now he's on WWE, where I don't want to say he's fledgling in the mid-card, because I don't necessarily think that he is, but I don't think he's in the same place where I think we would have him be if we were running things. I don't know. I just hope they get the Baron Corbin character right, because they've got a real gem on their hands.
Okay, so, I mean, excuse me, I don't know how aware you are of this, but I've already made comparisons between Roman Reigns and the Diesel character, and I felt like the Diesel character got kind of cut off at the knees. Well, turns out his first WrestleMania main event was WrestleMania 11, but it wasn't even actually the main event. The main event of WrestleMania 11 was a big schmoz of a tag team match, and Shawn versus Diesel went on second last. But the main event was the whole Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow thing. It was a singles match, but there were a shit ton of people at ringside.
Right.
So that was what Vince did with Diesel when he was the top guy, and he had Pamela Anderson at ringside represent, like, kind of in his corner, and Shawn Michaels had Sid and Jenny McCarthy in his corner, and they got 20 minutes, and then we got Bam Bam, and then WrestleMania 12 we got Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart as the main event. So already it was like, no, we're pushing him down. And the thing is, if you look at the numbers from shows, the ones that were headlined by Shawn and Bret actually did worse than the ones that were headlined by Diesel and just about anyone.
Right. And
screwed up big time.
And it's funny you say that, too, because what's the first thing you and I would say about Baron Corbin? And I can remember saying to myself that I saw real attraction quality in Baron Corbin if you handled him the right way. Brock Lesnar doesn't have to be your only attraction. If you build guys right, you could have homegrown attractions right in your backyard. And I think Baron Corbin is, proof positive of that fact. I think if you really handled him right, people would want to see him come in and lay people to waste. So here's to hoping.
Here is to hoping, but let's close this thing out with the main event discussion: Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose versus Wyatt and Rowan. This match did nothing for me.
It did nothing for me either, dude. In fact, I'm going to be honest. This match kind of fell flat with me because, and I'm going to be honest,
it was not memorable whatsoever. It was very forgettable.
It was not memorable whatsoever. And what's really concerning to me, and I got to be honest, next week is the go-home show for both Raw and SmackDown Live before SummerSlam. What has SmackDown done to really make Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler pop? I know initially they did the whole Dolph having this kind of self-doubt and this inferiority complex, like, oh, everybody's doubting me. I got to go and do something grand to really show that I belong. And you and I were saying right out of the gate, this isn't going to work unless Dolph is heel. And this commitment to him as the babyface, it's leaving a disconnect for me. I wanted him so badly to leave Dean Ambrose just high and dry. Go to the back. I don't need this. And maybe they do like a SmackDown Live exclusive on the YouTube channel. Oh, Dolph, why did you do that? And then he cuts one of his angry, I'm so great. I even came up with a catchphrase for him, I'm bitter because I'm better. And he can talk about how he wasn't used for 2 years and he's finally in this spot. He's going to show everybody how good he is, but really just be angry about it. But no, they have their match. Dolph gets the winning pin, which, again, their heart's in the right place. Like I said about Carmella earlier, they want to build the SummerSlam challenger. Oh, look at Dolph racking up all these wins. And, that super kick, it's so effective. But then they're celebrating, and it's Dean who's the one that lays Dolph out because he even said earlier in the night, I'm going to pay you back. I owe you one now. And then he owed him one.
I will say, I think that Dean kind of, if they're going to do Dean versus Dolph and neither one of them is actually going to turn heel, then Dean needs to be more heelish. He needs to be like that Tanahashi bully character where he's kind of just a dick to Dolph, because the whole point of having this championship match at a pay-per-view is the crowd is supposed to pay money because they want to see the title change hands. And if Dean's a dick, it makes people want to see Dolph get the title off of him. So it's more of a money draw kind of thing. It's Dean playing his character to try and extract as much money as possible from the crowd, from the audience, get them to want to see him to drop the title to Dolph.
I completely agree with you. They've got to do something, even if they call it during their actual match, and Dean's just like, hey, Dolph, I'm going to work more heel in this to get the crowd behind you. Because if this is really going to be two good guys that are just really proud and really competitive. Like, it's not that the match is going to be the shits. I don't think it will be. I mean, they're two quality workers for sure. But what's the story? What's hooking me in emotionally? And
Dude,
nothing is.
I would put money on this match opening the show because it's not going to main event. It's the third most important match on the show behind Seth Finn and Orton Lesnar.
Right.
And I would even argue fourth most important because I think Sasha Charlotte is going to be built up as more important in this match as well.
I agree. In fact, to a degree, I think it already has been, and I don't see where the emotional hook is for Ziggler Ambrose. And that's a huge problem because, and the thing is too, and again, this is just, rumors and the dirt sheet crap and all that. But I'm wondering if Dolph is just like a transitional kind of challenger and we're going to forget about him even being in this place come Backlash, which I mean, I'm no Dolph Ziggler, Mark. I'm not crying spilled milk over it. And we're just going to move straight on to AJ Styles and Ambrose. And in which case, like, fine. But can you not be so out and out about the fact that Dolph is a transitional challenger? Can you at least, like, give us something to give this kind of a hook? It's freaking SummerSlam. This isn't one of your SmackDown exclusive events where you need to pad out the card. You really got to pack a punch here. I mean, Raw is offering up Balor, Seth Rollins. And I know people have been, kind of weary, like, oh, isn't Finn in the main event too fast? I'll say this. I think those two guys have been telling a great story the past few weeks over who's going to be the first Universal Champion than Dolph and Ambrose have over the established WWE World Heavyweight title. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so this is going to end up jerking the curtain. Just calling it right now. Just going to say it right off the bat. The world title match is jerking the curtain.
And honestly, like, that makes me heartbroken for Ambrose, who's busting his freaking ass right now trying to do the best work he can as champion. But I'm not going to lie. With how this match has been built and with just the direction they decided to take it, does it really deserve anything else than the opener? Because I don't think so. I mean, I'll be honest. I feel more of an emotional hook with the Club versus the New Day for the tag team titles than I do for this match.
Well, I mean, any feud that involves a man getting ring postitis, you've got to be involved in.
I mean, right, though, but
in.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. And I mean, maybe, I won't go as far as say I'm more invested in Jericho versus the Realist guys. But even that, like, I like the opening segment they had. I can't really say that I've liked much that Dolph and Ambrose have done. Just the one night that Dolph was kind of going on his rampage was a lot of fun. But that's it. I really feel like they haven't built on that since. That's just my opinion. I mean, where would you, I'll ask you directly, partner, in terms of emotional investment, where would you rank this match of what you know is on the SummerSlam card?
Well, Seth Finn is probably 1. Sasha Charlotte is 2. Orton Lesnar is 3. I would say New Day Club would be 4. And then this match.
Okay, so you're pretty much like me then, because I think that's my exact order. Because, yeah, I can't put this match below Jericho versus the Realist guys, but everything else you said, like, yeah, so you and I are in complete agreement.
I would say, like, Realist guys versus Jericho, and this match could be like a 5A and 5B kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and I honestly, I'd have to agree with you. I think you and I are operating on the same wavelength, and that's really sad because, again, I think the world of Ambrose is champion. I think he deserves better. I think we're really going to see his best and the WWE Championship's best when AJ Styles comes into the fold and they have their match at Backlash. But yeah,
dude, if you want to mute your mic and cough and get that out of your system, you can all talk. I think though that you brought up AJ Styles. I do think that he's going to end up being the first person to challenge Dean after SummerSlam. But if you'll notice, the matches that we care about most, all of them involve at least one Raw competitor, because obviously the top 2 for both of us are Seth, Finn, and Sasha Charlotte. Those are both Raw exclusive. And then Orton Lesnar is half Raw, half SmackDown. And then Jericho and the Realist guys is on Raw. The New Day versus the Club is on Raw. And then we get to, Dean Ambrose is happening. That we don't really care about that, though. And I don't think that's just because, we don't care about it because it's on SmackDown. I think it's the other way around. I think because it's on SmackDown, they aren't producing enough quality content and building it in a way that makes us excited for it.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, hell, depending on what they do on the Go Home show, Apollo Crews versus The Miz may even be able to overtake it. I don't know. All I'm saying is why I even went on this whole thing. Dolph and Dean have one more week to really step it up. And I don't think, obviously, that'll be enough, but it's better than nothing. I really hope they do
Oh,
something.
and you know what, dude? I just thought of something else.
Yeah.
AJ Cena.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's to me, that's actually the SmackDown feud that I'm most excited about. I care about that more than I care about this. So that pushes this all the way down to like 6A and 6B with the Club versus the Realist, or with the Jarrett KO versus the Realist guys. So
yeah, I agree with your assessment wholeheartedly, and that's really a damn shame.
yeah, it really is. That's rough, man. I think this is just like a weird pit stop because I do think Dean's gonna beat Dolph, and I think that that's gonna be, you know, the last that we see of Dolph in the main event picture for a while, if not ever, and leaving and going to ROH or something after this. But Jay and Dean are going to have a much more compelling program than this because AJ is actually a heel, whereas Dolph, it's like they're trying to convince the crowd to cheer for Dolph when they really want to cheer for Dean because Dean's kind of been their guy and he finally got the title. It's like we can't really enjoy this Dean Ambrose title run until he gets a proper opponent that we're allowed to hate, you know?
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. With that said, is there anything else you want to say about this main event or its circumstances?
Let's move on.
All right, let's move on to our next segment, high spots and low shots. You know what? I'm going to say that my low shot is Becky Lynch because she finally gets to compete after 2 weeks and she loses. It's a losing effort against a debuting Alexa Bliss thanks to an Eva Marie distraction. So the last kicker is my low shot.
GG Bex, GG.
Who's your low shot, partner?
My low shot, and I hate to do this, but my low shot is the Wyatt family because you talk a big game. You say you were a victim last week, and then even though it was Rowan and not Bray, Dolph still picked up a clean pin on you in this tag match.
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. Moving on, my high spot is, let me think here. I'm going to say American Alpha because they won again tonight and they had the whole tag team division for an audience. And they just realized what they're in for. They're going to get suplexed a lot, and it's going to hurt the entire way there. So American Alpha is my high spot. Yeah.
I know how much you love them. My high spot, you know what? That doesn't have to do with the main event. I'm going to say my high spot is Randy Orton because even though he got assaulted by a chair, he won the match via DQ, and then he still stood tall at the end, and he's looking stronger now than he has in a long time, about to go up against Brock Lesnar. So, high spot, Orton.
I can agree with that. Absolutely. So, with that said, do you have any concluding remarks you want to make about SmackDown?
I don't think that I have any.
All right, guys. Well, with that said, this has been SmackDown Live. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Ashton, what question do you have for our subscribers this week?
My question is, what do you guys think SmackDown can do to get your interest in Ziggler Ambrose reinvigorated?
That's an excellent question. Guys, answer it down below. What can SmackDown do to get your interest in Ambrose and Ziggler reinvigorated? Be very interested in those responses. And guys, you already know all the stuff to check out because of our background, but what you may not know is to submit questions for our Q&A. We do a Q&A the last Friday of every month. We had a great turnout for our inaugural Q&A. I would really like to beat it for this upcoming Q&A, the last Friday of the month. I've already seen like an uptick in questions being sent on Twitter and other mediums. So clearly me hammering it home is working. So I'm going to keep doing it. You guys can submit them anywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. If you know where to find us, submit a question. You have up to 5 questions you can ask. They can be wrestling, non-wrestling. They can be to my persona, Johnny Scumbag, which oddly enough has gotten quite a bit of a turnout, which I greatly appreciate. Anything that's on your mind.
And for what it's worth, when we say 5 questions, it's not 5 questions that you can ask us in your life. It's 5 questions per Q&A, so per month.
Exactly. 5 questions per month. Get them in, guys. I love seeing what you guys have to ask of us. Already getting to see some of the questions firsthand because I was tagged. Some very interesting questions for this month's Q&A upcoming. So keep them rolling. You know, the window's still open. You got plenty of time left. Get your questions in. All right, guys. Well, with that said, we will see you again. You know, tomorrow's going to be a stacked day. It's G1 day 16, followed by our NXT TWitWoW and TWitWoW, and then our Cruiserweight Classic live reactions. That's going to be epic. It's a stacked day for your subscription box. And until then, guys, tune in and peace out.